vibes if the opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I'm your host, Buddy Kunanan. Now, folks, on this show, we like to celebrate diversity in opinion. And we believe that it is through the expression, understanding, and respect of different views that we're able to move society forward and advance as a nation. And tonight, folks, you're going to get to know a very interesting group called the Filipino Freethinkers. Now, this group may have different values and different beliefs, different from your own. In fact, some of you may consider their values sacrilegious. However, one thing is clear, the Filipino freethinkers are pushing the edge of the envelope, and they are questioning societal norms and values, even questioning some of its institutions, in the hope of finding out that which all of us are looking for, the truth. And joining us now to talk about the Filipino freethinkers and its many advocacies is the president and founder of FF, or Filipino Freethinkers, Mr. Red Tani. Hi, Red.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, welcome to Philippines Uncut again. I remember that we had you on the show about a year ago, and I've been meaning to get you on the show, but you guys have been so busy in Filipino Freethinkers.
Yeah, society gives us a lot of things to be busy about.
Yes, and well, that's good. At least we know that you guys are active and busy and really pushing your advocacies.
Yeah,
now, let's talk about you. Tell the audience about Red Tani.
Well, I graduated engineering, but I didn't really use any of that after I got into my first job as a software test engineer. But then I found myself having so much time, and I used that time for reading. And readings, particularly on the topic of religion. So I got to know Catholicism more than I ever have in my entire life. I got to know Catholicism, and what I found was not to my liking. But I still believed in God back then. So I kept on searching, even through many religions and philosophies and other belief systems, until finally I realized that free thought, or that kind of thinking, really appealed to me most. So I became an atheist, and I looked for others like me, and I found that there was no group that did the things the kind of things that I wanted to do, like talk to others in person about many topics from a very liberal and progressive mindset. So we formed one, like a bunch of close friends got together one time, and there were 26 of us back then. Now there are around 80 people sometimes who attend our meetups. So it's been really fun. We've been together for 3 years. And aside from discussing all of these topics, philosophy, religion, science, and all that, we also involve ourselves in public political advocacy, particularly secularism, or the separation of church and state.
Yes.
And we're primarily concerned with how the government, or particularly legislation, has been doing things with a very theocratic mindset, using religious arguments, ignoring scientific or statistical ones in favor of those that are based on tradition and authority and dogma.
Yes.
And we'd rather that the government be secular, that we base our arguments on science and valid, rational arguments. So we support bills like the RH bill, like the anti-discrimination bill that includes
LGBT,
respect for the LGBT community.
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgenders.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Ed, the Filipino Freethinkers, so is this an action group, or is it a think tank, an action group, an advocacy
It's really a lot of things. We call ourselves a fellowship of non-believers and progressive believers who practice and promote the values of reason, science, and secularism. So we want those values to be applied to every aspect of someone's life, from the personal to the societal and, of course, to the political.
Okay. Now, your members, what is the demographic? Is this a young organization, or do you have, let's say, the age range of your members or active participants?
We have members who are as young as like 12 to 14, and we have members who are as old as 70 or 80. But mostly we're young individuals, maybe 25 to 35 to 40. And although we come from different backgrounds, different ages and all that, what's common in our group is that respect for free speech and for open discussion. We believe that the ideas that survive scrutiny are the best ones.
Yes. Do you think, and you guys feel at this point in time in our history, free speech and open discussion is being stifled today?
Yes.
In many ways?
Yes, definitely. In the Philippines, not as much as in other countries like Indonesia or Pakistan, where there are definite theocracies. But I think that it's just as dangerous when the stifling is very subtle, because then you get used to it and you say that it's the way things have always been, so that when you ask for change, it's not as easy because the harm is not so obvious.
Yeah, it's ingrained as well, no?
Yeah.
So it's subtle, like you said, subtle, and it's something that people are used to. They take it as an everyday a fact of life.
Yeah. For example, like when priests or bishops say things, people take it for granted that they have authority on such matters, when in fact they do not.
What are you talking about? Like which matters, for example, which matters, in your opinion, do bishops and priests talk about over which they have no authority?
Well, for one thing, sex. Like they're not supposed to have any experience.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
what
the nature of their job calls for.
Yeah, or even giving birth.
Yeah.
Like I find it very interesting that it's a bunch of celibate old men who decide who prescribe decisions on matters such as pregnancy for women.
So, Red, that's so true because I have friends and they're married, and when people in the Philippines, I've noticed when they have marital problems, knee-jerk reaction is, pupunta ako kay father, I'm going to father so-and-so to ask for advice. Now, stepping back from all this, and I look at the situation, what does a priest know about the affairs between men and women?
That's true.
They have no wives, and probably they have never been in a relationship before with a woman, or if they had, it must have been a long time ago before they joined the order.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice could a priest dispense? It's like going to a dentist to have your heart checked.
Yeah, exactly. And it's when they go beyond their realm of expertise, which is really just theology, or studying the Bible, studying the history of the church, that things get really complicated. Like when they claim to know things about science and psychology, when it's really the opposite when it comes to priests and bishops. It's the opposite because usually you ask a question and you look for the evidence and that based on that evidence, you come to a conclusion. But when it's a bishop or a priest that uses science, they look at different kinds of sciences, even the fringe sciences, the pseudosciences. And when there's an argument or evidence that supports a claim, they use that.
Yeah.
And they mold it to the conclusion that they want.
Example, Red. Give us a specific example where a member of the cloth, like a member of the clergy, has delved into science and using science as a justification for some of their positions.
Well, let's use the RH bill, for instance. Okay. It's very obvious that they use economists now, and they use scientists now, but the ones that they use are the ones who, agree with their conclusion. So they use the economists that say having a big population is always good for a country. They use scientists that say contraception causes cancer in more cases than it's proven to cause cancer. They use like statisticians or psychologists who say that using contraceptives is bad for relationships because it degrades
it promotes promiscuousness and all this stuff. No, but Red, okay, fine. So let's say given that they do this, what's the problem there? Because the people can always counter and say that, okay, the pro-RH bill group also has their own slew of pro-RH or pro-population-controlled scientists, economists, whatsoever. So,
well, the difference is really the evidence. Like, the evidence that people on the progressive side use are the ones that are established. They're the ones that have peer-reviewed, sources, peer-reviewed and published in many journals. Whereas, on the other hand, it's really just a sounding board. I mean, an echo chamber, where the people who prove each other's claims are just themselves. Whereas, the evidence that progressive use are really using the strict rigors of science, where you test again, and you try to replicate the evidence. So it's really a difference of evidence.
Would you say that the church has an undue advantage in this fight, let's say the RH bill, between the pros and the anti group? Do you think that the Catholic Church has an undue advantage?
Well, they do have an advantage because they have a captive audience. Like every Sunday, they get to speak to their flock and say whatever they want, uncensored. No one really questions. No one can raise their hand in the middle of the mass. And I don't think...
I've never seen that happen.
That will never happen.
Well, our friend Carlos Sildan tried to, and it landed him in jail, right? Or almost. He
spent a night there.
A night in jail.
Yeah, and he's still in the middle of a case that's being dragged on just to give him a hassle. So that's the kind of thing that happens to you if you express your dissent.
Yes. Now, Red, how come the Catholic Church is so influential in this country? Where is it coming from?
Well, it's really coming from the centuries where we were under their reign. Like before, when we didn't have a Philippine constitution, and what we had was a Patronato Real, really that document that stands for that agreement between the Spanish government and the Catholic Church, that said that the Catholic Church got to have a say in everything in Philippine society.
They were running the show, basically.
They were running the show.
The Governor General was in effect answering to the church.
Yeah. And of course there were abuses, and the church really got to exercise their temporal power. So we became afraid of them, and that fear it became ingrained.
Yes.
And now we can say that it's just respect and all that, but really it's a culture. It was culturally embedded into our psyche that you fear the Catholic Church, you fear these figures of authority, and you think twice before questioning them.
What do you have to say about the fact that in this country, when a priest speaks, or a member of the cloth speaks, people automatically, or a lot of people automatically assume, or it's in the subconscious, that they are speaking for God? Yeah. Is this happening a lot here?
Well, yeah, because it's really the claim of the Catholic Church that they're the medium of God in this world. The Pope is the vicar of Christ, and the bishops and priests represent God as well. So it's really that respect for God is being imparted onto the priests and bishops and all that. So when a priest speaks, it's not just a man that's talking there. Like really, a lot of people think that he represents God, and you respect God, therefore you respect the priest.
When in effect, if you really look at the Catholic Church, it is a human organization.
Definitely.
A human organization composed of people, of men and women, and formed by man, organized by man, much like any other organization.
Yeah, the recent clerical abuse scandal, not only of children, by the way, but also of teenagers, of nuns even. Like these sexual abuse committed by the priests is proof of that. Like these priests, these bishops do make mistakes.
Yes.
And unfortunately for an organization like the Catholic Church, these mistakes are kept under the rug, are swept under the rug. Instead of sending these priests to jail, they are shuffled all over the world.
I have a personal experience with this. I was in Rome a few years ago, and we were in a church on a tour, and there was this one priest there. Apparently, he was the head of the church of a particular parish, and he was very obnoxious, very loud. He was an American, and needless to say, his behavior was appalling. And then we tourists were all shocked, and then someone approached us, an Italian guy that said, that priest. He was actually the priest who was involved in Boston in some abuse scandal in Boston. And he was now there in Rome, administering in a parish. So apparently, what the Vatican did, as you said, instead of sending them to jail, just send him to Rome, exiled him to a small church somewhere in Rome, where hopefully he would be forgotten and maybe to lay low while the heat was still on. And that's how, again, from personal experience, I can relate to what you said. Now, let's talk about you and the Filipino Freethinkers. Are most of your members atheists? Because you said you are an atheist, which means you don't believe in a God.
I do not.
Okay. Are most of your members like you?
Not really. Like, we have a lot of members who also claim to be agnostic and skeptic and humanist and whatever label that you have. But we also have a lot of believers, those who belong to religions like Catholicism and Hinduism and Islam and even Buddhism. So it's really a mix of perspectives. But what we have in common is that belief that society should be secular. I mean, government should be secular and not pander to any one faith, and to treat all faiths as equal, because that is the only way that you ensure religious freedom.
And in this country, how is it that, aside from RH Bill, how is it that Catholicism is somehow favored in this country in policies?
Well, when you look at marriage, for instance, before you, it's only the Catholic definition of marriage that is applied. One man, one woman. There will definitely be no same-sex marriage anytime soon, because the way that the Catholic Church defines it is one woman, one man. Islam is also privileged in a way because they allow for a marriage with many partners, right? They also allow for divorce. But those are the two religions that are, based, that you ask when you ask the definition of marriage. There are many traditions of marriage, polygamous and all that, but you disregard those because the ones that are in place are, the Catholic.
And there's no divorce here.
Yes, there is annulment, by the way.
Yes.
But again, when it comes to annulment, there is always a Catholic priest in the tribunal that decides whether to grant annulments. And why is it that it's only the Catholic priest there? So it really shows you that the Catholic religion is favored in this country.
And we are one of the few countries, if not the only country in the world today, as far as I know, where there is no divorce yet.
Yeah,
because there used to be Malta. It used to be Malta and the Philippines, and I think Malta waived it already or gave it up because they had to join the EU.
They did. They did, and of course not without any backlash from the Catholic Church.
Yes.
And also, like, Malta recently passed their RH bill, like a little bit before they passed the divorce.
And I think that's what really scares the Catholic Church here, because they fear that if the RH bill passes, divorce can be far behind.
Yeah, they have a thing called the death bill. So there's divorce, euthanasia, abortion, total contraception, and homosexuality. So they're afraid of all the legislation that's related to this.
How does the church view homosexuality, in your experience, in your dealings with them, in your studies?
Well, before they outright condemned homosexuality itself, like that, you're a homosexual, you're already sinful. But they nuanced it a bit to say that being a homosexual is not bad, but giving into the temptation that homosexuals have, which is having homosexual relations, that's what's wrong. So it's hate the sin and not the sinner, but really it's kind of a cop out.
Yes.
Like it's really unfair and discriminatory towards homosexuals, and they should really just be honest about it. But of course they wouldn't do that because they don't want to seem evil.
What kind of reforms are the LGBT, lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgenders in your organization looking for or would like to happen with regard to the City Catholic Church?
Well, of course, there's marriage equality, right? But before that, they're fighting for the inclusion of sexual orientation and gender identity, that clause, in the anti-discrimination bill. Now, it's funny because legislators like Senator Soto want to remove the inclusion of this SOGI or these LGBT clauses from the anti-discrimination bill.
What for? I mean,
well, because he feels perhaps that if you include those, then it will give license to individuals to be out and secure about their homosexuality, as it should be.
What's wrong with that?
Exactly, exactly. But of course, they would prefer that they handle it they stay in their closets and keep it to themselves rather than be out.
I think it's really the finger in the dike. I'm sorry, I mean, pardon the pun. The finger in the dike expression, like, once you remove the finger from the dike, and then nothing will stop really the dike from collapsing and having this avalanche of water flood.
It's really the slippery slope argument. When, like, I saw this picture that going around that when you allow, same-sex marriage to happen, then what keeps you from allowing bestiality from happening, or necrophilia and all that?
Well, I can see where I can see some logic there. I mean, those are pretty nasty things.
Yeah. But there really is no connection.
Yes,
The only thing that will happen.
That's the fear.
That's the fear. Yeah. But the only thing that will happen when you pass bills like the RH bill or the anti-discrimination bill or marriage equality is that you remove the influence of the Catholic Church from legislation, as it should be.
And from people's lives.
Well,
yes.
If it's a private thing. If people want it to be a part of their lives, then they could. But for it to be enforced on them, that's just unfair, and it goes against religious freedom.
By a religious organization, even if you're not a member of this organization, because it's now a law, or it could become a law, or it's legislated, then even you, being a non-Christian, maybe non-Catholic, are obliged to follow it.
Yeah, exactly. There are even mandates in certain places, like Davao, where the mayor issued this document that says all employees of this public office should attend First Friday Mass. Regardless of whether you're a Catholic or not.
Yeah.
So
I read something's got to change. Something's got to give. Anyway, we got to pause for a break, but we'll be back for more of our discussion. So guys, don't go away, because in a few moments, Philippines Uncut returns with more of Filipino Freethinkers. Stay tuned.